Good evening from London. It's a bleak January evening here in London, and hello to all dear comrades, friends and supporters from Dr. Dermot Hudson, the chairman of the British Group for the Study of the Juche Idea, chairman of KFA UK and official delegate of the KFA for the UK, president of the Association for the Study of Songun Politics of the UK, and also owner of this channel, Songun 007. And as promised, I'm making this video on the subject of the 55th anniversary of the capture of the US imperialist armed spy and pirate ship, the USS Pueblo. And of course today, 23rd of January, is the 55th anniversary of the capture of the Pueblo. I visited the USS Pueblo many times. It is a unique experience because it is the only US Navy vessel in the whole world that is actually in the hands of another country. It is basically impounded by the DPRK and is a war trophy. The Pueblo is a floating anti-US museum. The DPRK holds the ship, and there is nothing that the Americans can do about it. It was captured by the heroic and daring navy of the invincible Korean People's Army on the 23rd of January 1968. It was captured just 2 days after South Korean revolutionary armed guerrillas had launched an attack on the mansion of the South Korean puppet fascist dictator Park Chung-hee. The first time I visited the Pueblo was in October 2008, when it was moored on the banks of the River Taedong, near to the site where the Korean people, led by Kim Il-sung, the great-grandfather of the great leader President Kim Il-sung, had sunk the US warship General Sherman that had invaded Korea during the 19th century. The Pueblo was moved to the rebuilt and expanded Victoria's Fatherland Liberation War Museum in 2013. It is moored on the bank of the River Potong, basically given pride of place in the exhibition of captured Yankee war equipment. I found it very interesting to look round the Pueblo for a number of reasons. Firstly, because it symbolises the victory of the Korean people, guided by the great and immortal Juche Idea and led by President Kim Il-sung, over US imperialism. Secondly, it provides evidence of US imperialist aggression, espionage and subversion against People's Korea and other socialist countries. Thirdly, by capturing the USS Pueblo with its espionage equipment intact, the DPRK performed an invaluable feat for the international communist movement and the socialist camp, which some people forgot and overlooked. Fourthly, I had a personal interest in looking at the ship because my grandfather had been a chief petty officer in the British Navy and had taken part in the battle against Nazi German ships in the South Atlantic during the Second World War. Looking around the Pueblo several times, I could see it was definitely a spy ship and an armed vessel. It had a mounted heavy machine gun at the back and one at the front. The crew of the ship had been armed with automatic weapons and hand grenades. There was one whole room packed full of electronic equipment, so there was no way that it could have been an innocent oceanographic research ship or survey ship, as the US imperialists ludicrously tried to claim at the time. The guides to the Pueblo showed us a short documentary film which showed how the Pueblo was captured by the KPA Navy as well as the response of the US and the world people to the incident. We were shown the sophisticated electronic spying equipment that was so much so that it filled a whole room. We also saw the difference between the living quarters of the officers and the ratings on the ship. The US imperialist armed forces and those of other imperialist countries have strong social and class differentiations within them and suffer from acute class and social contradictions and conflicts. I was surprised to see an ice cream making machine on board on the ship, and a mental picture of American spies scoffing ice cream came into my mind. And indeed, I could not help thinking how it showed the softness of the US armed forces. The Pueblo had been captured on January 23rd, 1968, while spying on military and state secrets of the DPRK after intruding into its territorial waters in the East Sea of Korea up to 7.6 miles from Ro Islet near Wonsan at latitude 39 degrees 17.4 minutes north latitude and longitude 127 degrees 46.9 minutes east. The Pueblo was boarded by the sailors of the Korean People's Navy, who captured 80 US spies, and one of them was killed. And if you can imagine what would happen if a DPRK ship was found off New York or off San Francisco or off Miami, there would be such a hullabaloo from the US imperialists you'd never hear the end of it. Anyway, I feel it's important to make that point. At the time, the great leader, Comrade Kim Jong-il, praised the KPA sailors, saying, and I quote, well done indeed, our blue jackets are brave. This is a world-shocking incident. It is unprecedented that an armed spy ship of the US imperialists, who boast of being the mightiest in the world, had been captured. This incident can only have occurred in Korea. End of quotation. The arrogant US imperialists were extremely outraged by the DPRK's just self-defensive action, which was obviously aimed at defending the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DPRK. The Yanks had been caught fair and square and banged to rights. However, the US imperialists ignored that and went as far as to demand the immediate return of the ship and its crew. At the same time, they brazenly denied it was an armed spy ship, claiming it was an innocent civilian research ship. One can only chuckle at the nonsense that the US imperialists talk about. They threatened the DPRK with bombing and even nuclear war, dispatching a nuclear aircraft carrier, the USS Enterprise. The great leader, President Kim Il-sung, and the Korean people were completely unfazed by the threats and bravado of the US imperialists. Addressing the 20th anniversary of the foundation of the Korean People's Army, President Kim Il-sung said, and I quote, "If the US imperialists persist in their attempt to solve this matter by mobilizing their armed forces, threaten and blackmail us, they will get nothing out of it. If they do get anything, it will be only corpses and death. We do not want war, but we are not afraid of war. Our people and People's Army will retaliate for the retaliation of the US imperialists and return all-out war for all-out war." I remember reading this speech in Volume 5 of Kim Il-sung's selected works back in 1985. It was one of the first works of the great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung that I'd ever read. I recall being extremely impressed by it. I could not help marvelling at the strong and militant anti-imperialist revolutionary stand of the great leader Marshal Kim Il-sung. It stood out in stark contrast to the revisionism of the USSR with its theory of peaceful coexistence. It was like a breath of fresh air compared to the capitulationism and bourgeois pacifism of the soggy, stodgy British left. The US imperialists found that their threats did not work. They resorted to other means to get back the ship and its crew. The US imperialists were quite desperate. They asked the then British Prime Minister Harold Wilson, who was undoubtedly one of the most popular British Prime Ministers with his trademark pipe and distinctive Yorkshire accent, and I recall how we all used to go around trying to talk like Harold Wilson when I was at school in the 70s. Anyway, to get back to the point, Wilson had enjoyed good ties with the former Soviet Union, and the US asked him to ask Soviet Premier Kosygin to ask the DPRK to release the ship and its crew. Of course, this kind of indirect diplomacy, asking someone to ask someone else to ask yet another person to do something, failed completely, as it was doomed from the start. The US imperialists failed to understand the nature of the DPRK, which was completely independent of the Soviet Union because it had the Juche Idea and followed the line of independence and self-reliance. In fact, the revisionist Soviet Union, obsessed with peaceful coexistence and peaceful cooperation, always doing deals with US imperialism, had put pressure on the DPRK to hand back the ship and its crew. The DPRK's action in capturing the Pueblo was totally independent of the Soviet Union and China, and indeed the DPRK had done something that neither of those two big powers would dare to do. The crew of the Pueblo confessed to their crimes of spying on and aggression against the DPRK. In the end, the US had no alternative but to apologise for its crimes and humbly ask for the crew to be returned. US General Gilbert Woodward handed over a letter of apology to the DPRK representatives at Pyongyang. The Pueblo crew were duly expelled from the DPRK on the 23rd of December 1968, nearly 1 year after they'd been captured. The tough and uncompromising stand of the great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung and the Korean people had been vindicated. The US imperialists had been defeated in their confrontation with People's Korea. They had to apologise. They got the crew back, but the ship remained in the hands of the DPRK forever. The capture of the Pueblo was a victory for Songun politics and the anti-imperialist, anti-revisionist, independent stand of the DPRK. It was a lesson to the world's people to be uncompromising in their anti-US, anti-imperialist stance and to fight US imperialism to the last. Today, the Pueblo stands as a monument to the stupidity and decadence of US imperialism, a symbol of the defeat of US imperialism. It is a portent of the final defeat of the US imperialism. I'm sure that the Korean people, led by dear respected Marshal Kim Jong-un, will inflict a greater defeat on the US imperialists and will achieve final victory over US imperialism. Long live People's Korea, long live Juche, long live self-reliance. Thank you for watching this video. If you're not already a subscriber to this channel, Songun 007, please consider subscribing to it and to our affiliated channel, KFA UK. And also please share content from the channel as much as possible. Tell your friends about it. Let's get out there and win more friends for People's Korea, and more supporters and followers of the Juche Idea and the Songun Idea. You can also support our work by buying and reading and telling other people about our publications, which are on lulu.com. I'll put a link to the author spotlight in the description of this video. And what's most important is to actively participate in our work. So please look out for our events online and in real life. We had a successful KFA UK AGM at the weekend. We've got a meeting organised by an online event organised by the British Group for the Study of the Juche Idea on the 4th of February. So please look out for that. And please keep up your support for the channel. Thank you for watching. And I wish you all a great evening. Goodbye, and see you again soon. Goodbye.